Good afternoon. We're back here. David from We Love Paving, joined again by Ismail from We Love Paving, the guy that allows for all this to happen. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, I'll go ahead and explain exactly why we're doing this, right? So this is nothing more, nothing less than some recordings of some paving professionals who want to bring more light about this industry, and just general information for you guys to be empowered, to be enabled, and really feel confident about making decisions that affect your pavement. Whether you're a property owner, business owner, maybe you're just a property manager. Again, a lot of people don't know much about this industry, and because of that, sometimes people are being taken advantage of, and that's what we're trying to prevent here. So we're doing this for you. We want to make sure that you are aware of what's out there for you, what are the options that you guys can exercise, and ultimately it should lead to a better place for us all. Okay, so real quick, just to recap from what we did last week. Last week we talked about asphalt. I promised you last week that this week we would talk to you guys about ADA. I rethought everything and thought maybe a better idea is to let's talk about asphalt first, let's talk about concrete next, let's talk about a little bit of maintenance for both, and then we'll talk about ADA, because ADA is nothing more, nothing less than refinements and some nuances and specifications of your asphalt or concrete. So we're gonna go ahead and do it that way instead. And sorry, I'm not able to fulfill my end of the bargain of bringing the ADA information to you yet. I promise you I will bring you that information. So today, as I alluded to, we're going to talk about concrete, and Ismail is going to help me and guide me to be able to bring that concrete knowledge and information to you. Again, I already mentioned the purpose, and you guys understand exactly why. Okay, so just like we did last week, what we're going to do is kind of answer some of the questions. stable base, it doesn't matter if 50% of it is new and the other 50 is not. Right? In concrete, you can't do that. You can't grind a portion of it and then add new concrete to it. Now, I will also be honest with you, right? There are some companies out there that do that, right? That do that. That there is a base right now that has concrete installed, and because it's too expensive to take out and replace and fulfill that entire gap of the old and plus the new, some people do that. Some companies are doing that. Again, like sometimes you want to satisfy the customers, but I think the best way that you can go about satisfying customers is being honest with them and telling them, hey, right now, actually we have a project that's coming up over in Oakland. A customer has a similar situation where he has her biggest concern was